A podcaster on the Twin Cities News Talk podcast with the podcast Wrong About Everything, but joining us to third wheel for a little bit to talk about the Star Tribune's reporter J. Patrick Kulikin, and then later on Ben Johnson with the City Pages will join us at 8 to tell us what the hip people are reading about. But now, Dr. Duke Pesta is the Freedom Project Education Academic Director, also a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, will be in town tonight in Eden Prairie at the Grace Church at 7 to give a presentation on Common Core. And joining us now over the phone is Dr. Pesta. Good morning, Doctor. All right, this is the only topic I'm not an expert on. Here's what I know about Common Core. The math is confusing. So confusing, parents Facebook pictures of their kids' math problems, and they don't make any sense to me or the parents. What else is there?
To the Common Core debate. You've got 10 minutes.
That's a huge topic. I guess the easiest place to start is that there are two fundamental problems with Common Core from which all the other problems derive. And they are, one, the loss of local control. This is ultimately ceding much of educational control to the federal government away from states and local communities. And the second problem is that once the feds have appropriated that, which they are already doing, they are replacing education with a whole lot of ideology. They're using their control now to change the way children are taught for very political reasons, not for educational ones.
Okay, first question. How much control does the federal government have now over education? And how far would the needle go if everybody adopted Common Core?
Well, this has been going on for about 40 years. Common Core is the extension of this. It's not something that's brand new. You may recall that under President Bush, we got No Child Left Behind. Mm-hmm. No Child Left Behind was really the first major step to remove control from the states and to put it at the federal level. So we've had that since 2003. I define Common Core. I define as No Child Left Behind on steroids. The worst aspects of No Child Left Behind are back with Common Core, only they are more cemented at the federal level. So I think this is a big turning point. If Common Core is not pushed back, if most states end up taking it and keeping it, then it's going to be really hard to ever again let educational control filter back to the state.
All right, every single one of our listeners, right-leaning listeners, agrees that the education control should be out of the hands of the federal government, either on the state or local level. And most lefties, if you explain it to them, will agree as well. So that, I get, understood. Is Common Core mandatory, or is it something that states have to sign up for?
Well, it's very duplicitous. The way states got Common Core was through the Race to the Top program. Back in 2008, President Obama, in 2009, when he was stimulating things, they created the Race to the Top program, which allowed every state in the union to apply for money, basically free money, that went from the federal government to state boards of education. Now, interestingly, 46 states took money out of the 50. And the only real meaningful provision of taking Race to the Top money was any state that took it had to accept the Common Core state standards along with the money when they were written. So most states in the union took Common Core without even knowing what it was because they wanted the big federal giveaway of dollars.
Well, why bother reading, researching, looking at what you're signing up for when there's free money involved?
Well, think about it. New York became the first state to take Race to the Top money in 2009. They received $700 million from the federal government. It went right into their state education department budget. They could spend it any way they wanted to, and the only proviso was you had to take a set of curriculum standards that hadn't been written yet. 46 states took that gamble.
Wow. Dr. Pesta, after taking $700, did you say million or billion?
Million.
Million. After taking $700 million, how much smarter did the kids in New York get?
Got worse. Fascinating point. New York was one of the first states to take Common Core, and they've had it longer than most states. After the first year of Common Core testing, test scores in New York plummeted from the 70s, mid-70s in reading and math, all the way down to the 30s. So bad is it in New York that the New York State Teachers Union, hardly a right-wing entity, the New York State Teachers Union is calling for a dramatic and immediate pullout of Common Core, and they want the state superintendent of schools fired, the man who brought it to the state.
All right, so that is something, but this No Child Left Behind also is something the people on the right don't like and people on the left don't like, yet here it is. So we may get some allies from the teachers union, but is that going to do anything? So federal control, bad. We can all agree on that.
Right.
What are they teaching? What is it about Common Core itself that is bad?
Right. Is your objection more based upon the federal control and the federal standards that are implemented across the board without any consideration for what might be appropriate from one community to the next? Or is it with the subject matter that's actually being taught, or the way it's being taught?
Teached.
Teached.
You need some Common Core.
Yeah, it's both. It's exactly both, because you're right. First of all, this is one-size-fits-all education.
How they're trying to get kids to look at themselves as citizens of the state first before anything else. How is that an example of status?
Exactly. You've got young kids who are being taught at home their various religious traditions, their various family values with regards to sexuality. Then you have a harder time at the federal level gaining the kind of control, continuing the kinds of programs that the federal government wants to continue. If the state now uses classes like English to standardize the national view of sexuality, then you have decreased parental power and control. And by calling it a national standard, you are making it much more difficult for kids in local communities to opt out of lessons that are offensive to parents politically or religiously.
All right, Dr. Duke Pesta will be at the Grace Church in Eden Prairie tonight at 7 o'clock. Be sure to, if you like what you heard, or if you didn't, show up, learn something, and if I didn't have other plans, I'd go. This is a fascinating topic.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Pesta. We appreciate your time. When we return, we're going to talk with Mike Franklin. He's a podcaster here on the Twin Cities News Talk Podcast Network with Wrong About Everything, though he is rarely ever wrong. We're going to circle back to that story from the Star Tribune by J. Patrick Coolican that I ripped apart yesterday and thought was incredibly biased. All that and more when we return.
Up and Adam.
Of all the morning shows that are on, this is one of
Drinking age.
I was listening.
But we think it's got ulterior meanings.
No, I think this begs of a marketing campaign.
Yeah, Mike, you started drinking years and years before you should have. What do you think about the 18?
I was, to quote a coworker of mine, I was 21 for 3 years in college. So.
It's always a unique experience when you go to the liquor store on your 21st birthday after having gone there for 3 years with a fake ID.
Yeah. Hey, Mike.
Hey, what? No, it's hey Jerry.
Randy. No comment. Oh, I commented.
All right, yesterday we talked about the article in the Star Tribune from J. Patrick Coolican. Big money helped GOP flip House. In that article, I found a lot of instances of what I thought was bias. But the biggest part was that the headline of the article, Big Money Helped GOP Flip House, was misleading, erroneous, and even the article itself disproved that.
Right. It's as though the headline writer and the authors of the article had never met.
Well, and I knew that the headline writer is somebody else. I forgot it yesterday.
Yeah.
I forgot. And the last sentence of the piece is a complete contradiction, 100% contradiction of the title.
Right.
And when I was emailing the author, J. Patrick Coolican, he pointed that out to me. It's like, dude, I recognize that too. So
Yeah.
I think at least the headline he didn't write. I blamed him for taking us down a path that he probably didn't intend.
Sure.
Though, don't reporters get to at least look at the headline of the article before it goes out?
Yeah, I don't know how, at what point in journalism school this comes up, but yeah, you'd think that if you're putting your name to something, you'd get a little bit of an editorial, an opportunity to say, well, this actually
that's why the show
contradicts the story.
That's why this show is now called Up and Andrew, because he wanted to have a say in it.
Yeah, it's going a lot better, you guys. No, but actually, I'll give some props out to Gary Gross at Let Freedom Ring blog.
Smart guy.
There's a breakdown of this article, sentence by sentence, that kind of goes through and just takes it apart. Because I would say it's not just the headline. This happens every time there's a campaign finance report released, or there's a need by some to make it seem as though Republicans are in any way, shape, or form the party of money.
Right.
Which has never, I've been in politics in Minnesota for as long as Jack has.
Almost as long as.
It has never been true.
Ever.
It has never been true.
Ever.
Yet they insist on perpetuating that narrative.
Right.
At every turn, every opportunity. And even when they're reporting about how Democrats raise a ton more money and spend a ton more money than Republicans, there's always that little scare line at the bottom. But there may not be money we're not aware of.
The dark money.
Yeah, there's dark money out there.
The dark money.
Which I'd never heard of. You'd never heard of.
No, this is a new thing. When I called in briefly yesterday because I'm as a professional in this area, I should have been finding dark money all along, and I wasn't, and so I'm quite embarrassed. I'm sure clients are mad at me.
Yeah.
Right.
Where was the dark money?
Terrible at your job.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I was going to ask Adam Dunnick. I bet he knows.
Well, and that's another thing, because to bring people up to speed, I asked the author of this article, J. Patrick Coolican, to come on the show today. I said, look, we're going to be talking about this. Why don't you come in, defend yourself? We'll have a conversation. And he isn't coming in. He's got other things going on, but he did say that he would. I actually believe him. I think he made some references in the email that tells me that he's not the kind of guy who will back down from a fight.
Good.
So I think he'll show up at some point.
Good.
What was my point? Dark money. How did I brought up that in the article, he mentions that Ben Golnick, who used to work for one of these organizations that spent money on the campaign, is now working for the state house.
Sure.
And he did not mention the fact that the former head of Win Minnesota, the fundraiser
Right.
for the left is now with the Met Council, making, what is it now, $154,000 now?
Yep.
We'll get to that soon.
got
We should ask Golnick if he's making that much.
Right.
I'm going to guess
No, no, he's not. And Kulikin said, I don't cover the Met Council.
Well, the story checks out.
Yeah. you absolutely, because I Googled it, you did not cover that shenanigan.
You know, even though
there.
the inference just in that sentence was, was a self-dealing narrative among Republicans.
Well, that's how Ben Golnick got his job.
Well, right.
He spent years raising money and then being in control of that money, thus he could determine his own salary at that place to get a job working for the government. The whole plan, that was it.
Well, it's worked out for him.
Uh-huh. Now, Kulikin, in his Twitter bio, says that he is a reporter. But if you look at his past writings, his past bios, he's not. He's a columnist. Now, again, in my conversations with him, he said, no, I can do both. I can separate myself. I frankly don't think that's possible, at least for me. You know, what am I going to be hired by the Star Tribune to be a straight-up, down-the-middle reporter?
Right.
Never. Ever, ever, ever. Mr. Kulikin contends he can do it, but I think the article we read yesterday proves he can't.
Well, I don't. As far as I'm aware, he's new to Minnesota politics.
Yeah.
He may not be new. In fact, a quick Google search indicates he is not new to journalism or to being a columnist,
Writing
or,
things down and
writing
having
things,
people read it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That thing. So it is an auspicious debut to take an article or take a column or whatever this is. I guess we should refer to it as an article, since he's got his journalism hat on, and say this is hard news when it is just infused with to take it at its most generous to him statements that could have been better explained to put the reader in the context that is actually reflective of facts.
I spent a whole segment ripping into it yesterday. If you'd like to stretch your legs a little bit on this, Mike Franklin, you certainly can.
Well, I mean, I don't want to beat this to death for your audience either, but I mean, I would refer you.
Can I talk vaccines instead?
You had a great. Well, maybe. I wish I were vaccinated against campaign finance. I can't quit it. You had a great. You had a great breakdown of. Start with early in the paragraph, early in the column. The reports indicate that of the 10 most expensive state house races, Republicans won 7. But if you actually look at the numbers, yes, they won 7. They were outspent also in 7.
Yeah. Right.
He's
because they were the most expensive, that doesn't mean anything about whether or not Republicans won or lost them. Democrats outspent the Republicans.
He's implying
across the board.
Yeah, in that first statement of the 10 expensive ones, Republicans won 7, that they must have spent the most money in those 7.
Including in
Not
the
the
top
case.
2 races, the Jim Knobloch race in St. Cloud and the Yvonne Seltzer, Kirk Stensrud race in the West Metro. In the one race, the most expensive race, the Democrats outspent the Republicans, and the Republican won. In the second most expensive race, the Republicans outspent the Democrat, and the Democrat won. So the big spender was 0 for 2. In the top 2 most expensive races in the state. So part of my objection to the story is, yes, this bias that you don't really need to get much into much past the headline in order to get through, but also this continued inference that big money somehow always yields the result that the spenders want. That has never been the case either, and so it is an obsession. And in particular among the left, it is an obsession with money in politics that, I mean, and it just gets into in here. Citizens United belongs nowhere in this column.
No.
And yet
it's not relevant
They
at
can't
all.
help but bring it up.
Right.
And connect it to dark money, which is completely 180 degrees false.
Right.
Citizens United has absolutely nothing to do with what they call dark money. In fact, if anything, I can make the argument, and I think a fairly credible argument, that Citizens United, if you don't like dark money, if you don't like electioneering expenditures or issue ads is what they're getting at, then Citizens United is your friend. Because Citizens United said that money can now be used for express advocacy. Vote for Mike Franklin. Vote for Andrew Lee.
Right.
That's where the quote dark money. That's why they don't like
to a
it.
vague issue ad that doesn't necessarily support
Andrew
a
Lee.
candidate, right? But is clearly on one side or the other, right?
Exactly. And so people, you could I said it's a discussion. I'm not saying that's a dispositive fact, but I will make the argument that if you don't like electioneering communications, Citizens United is your friend.
In my email conversation with J. Patrick Hooligan, he said, I think you'd be hard-pressed finding anyone who would say the new campaign finance regime is better for Democrats than for Republicans in the long term over the entire electoral map. Certainly in this state, we are the Democrats are the party of the rich here. The Democrats have the money here. And every article I found that talked about what Citizens United did said that unions are spending far more money than business, and lefty groups getting far more money than Republicans,
Including this article.
But right, no,
Right.
So a lot of the articles I mentioned that I've read are before the election. Did this election change anything, or are Democrats still better at raising and spending money than the Republicans are because of Citizens United?
Where is it in? I'm scrolling through Mr. Coolican's article where he gets at it in this race that Republican aligned. It's not the right way. Well, he gets at we made it closer. Because back in the day, before Citizens United, we'd get outspent like 6-1 or 7-1. Now it's only like 2-1 or 3-1. So the margin is definitely the margin. If you're looking at it from a Republican perspective, the margin has improved or has gotten better. But we've now had 3 election cycles since Citizens United. And we Republicans, right-leaning groups, are still being outspent by orders of magnitude.
Was it this from the article? In the House races, however, Republicans and their allies approached parity.
That's the one I was looking for. Approached parity.
Spending $4.3 million to the DFL aligned groups $5.4 million, which, as I said yesterday, a $1.1 million is not nothing.
Yeah,
if you think that's a little bit,
that's a significant gap.
You try to raise it.
If
You try to raise $1 million.
They're approaching parity.
Yeah.
So
If that's approaching parity, I'm approaching a size medium.
Yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars are approaching parity with the New England Patriots.
When we return, a little bit more on this, and we'll ask Mike Franklin what he thinks of the governor's administration getting big raises.
Up and at 'em.
My friends told me to listen. I'm not sure.
When it comes to your future, trial and error can really...
Welcome back to the show. I'm Jack Tomczak. That is Andrew Lee.
Good morning.
Yes! Other wheeling, training wheeling. Mike Franklin from the podcast Wrong About Everything. You can find that at TwinCitiesNewsTalk.com.
What's a podcast?
What's a podcast?
What's a podcast?
I just like listening to things live.
I'm out of my element.
Let's move on from J. Patrick Hooligan. There's more to it.
I like that he puts the J in front of his name.
I don't
It just makes him sound a
understand.
little more pretentious.
Yeah, don't.
My name's J. Patrick.
I reached out to a
Not
right-leaning.
just Patrick.
Yeah, he used to work in Las Vegas, J. Patrick Hooligan. I reached out to a blogger from out there who had written about him to see if the blogger would come on today, and surprisingly, the blogger didn't get back to me. So
If you Google J. Patrick Hooligan and Nevada, there's some right wingers out there that don't like him very much.
yeah, they say he's a thug. So we'll have him in here. We'll see how thuggy he is. I was
He's
gonna
gonna
rip
be
on
waiting
him.
outside for you.
There's something that J. Patrick Hooligan had written where he refers to Michelle Bachmann as having crazy eyes, which
Well, his story.
I've done, so I
Yeah,
can't
right,
really.
yeah.
But as a legit reporter, I mean, that probably shouldn't be something you say. But if you're a columnist, that's perfectly fine. All right, now that we've got Mike Franklin in, let's circle back to that story about Mark Dayton giving his administration raises.
Yeah, isn't that
Andrew?
something? That's a great. Well, I mean, it's a good time to be in government, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well,
Has there been a bad time?
He wants to keep and retain the best and the brightest. And to do that, he needs to give out raises ranging from 19 to 58%.
If you would like to see us talk about this, we've got a live video feed from Central Media Services that we're tweeting out and Facebooking out. You can check that out. And I really need to sit up.
Go to the Twin Cities News Talk Facebook page. The link is posted there. It's also on all of our individual Twitters, the Up and Adam Show Twitter, et cetera, et cetera.
To powder my forehead, too.
I was told specifically to wear pants for this. And
Yes.
that,
Nobody told me.
I'm sitting at a table.
We'll be
the
dancing
viewers-
soon. We'll be dancing soon.
I was the
8
only
o'clock
one
dance party.
left out of the pants conversation.
I'm pretty sure I told you. Selective hearing. Yeah.
Very upset by this.
Andrew, wear pants every day.
You know, if you gave him a 56% raise, you'd get the kind of quality output from Andrew.
Well, that's true.
I would get the best and the brightest pants.
Here's the thing: we don't necessarily want to retain the talent around here, but if we can get better talent for more money, all in. More money.
Dayton says in state government, we need to keep and attract the best talented people. It's essential to pay them closer to what they're worth. So he's giving out raises ranging between 19 and 58%. Now, most raises in the private sector are between 3 and 5%, if you get a raise.
I have literally never gotten a 56% raise.
I've nothing even close to that.
Yeah, no.
Nothing even close to that. Not unless I've changed jobs.
I take that 5%,
Yeah.
but
Is that why April Todd Momloff left?
She wasn't
Wasn't getting paid enough to go
Yeah,
on vacation.
she wasn't good.
She might have gone and earned 10 times
No, the private
her
sector.
salary in the private sector.
Yeah.
which
was she
Dayton
the best or
claims.
the brightest?
Both.
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 Because Minshear.
Top talent.
Yeah. His top commissioners, and it's not indicated what qualifies someone as a top commissioner, they're all getting 30% raises. The smallest raise is going to a position known as the Ombudsman for Mental Health.
That's a thing.
I had no idea
Learning
that
a lot
existed.
today.
That person's getting a bump of $22,000. They will now earn just shy of $120,000 annually. It's a nice salary. Also getting a boost is the chairman of the Met Council, Adam Dwinick, formerly with Alliance for a Better Minnesota. That job changed from full-time to part-time, and the pay increased by $83,000 and now is just shy of $145,000 annually.
Good day.
Yeah, that's a nice bump.
It's a good day.
Yeah. That's like 27 Dylans worth of a bump.
Wasn't that a Bruce Willis movie?
27 Dylans.
I would posit you this. Who could do a better job running the Met Council? 27 Dylans?
Oh, this guy. You guys, this is going to be super fun. Poll on the website.
I would rather Dylan be in charge of the Met Council.
What?
Then I would be sure very little would get done.
That'd be fine. Not Minshear, though. They already have a hard time answering the phone.
That's true. That's true.
Hey. Well, when I finally get ass canned, then I can check out the Met Council.
Now, Dayton says any member of his cabinet could earn 10 times their salary in the private sector than what they're making. So what he's saying is that Adam Dwinick, who is now head of the Met Council,
1.5 mil.
could
Graduated
go to the
college in
private sector
2007.
and go earn a 1.5 mil. What he's saying is that whoever is the ombudsman for mental health in state government could go out into the private sector and earn $1.2 million a year.
I don't.
That's
get it.
insane.
And actually, what's
is
interesting
he stupid, insane, or lying?
Well, here's the opportunity for Republicans is that it's not as though this story stands on its own in terms of a DFL self-dealing narrative, which I have been very purposefully trying to create as part of the Wrong About Everything podcast. And we've talked about and actually have, and to some extent, have gotten very little resistance from our friends on the left because you have to drop this not just by itself, but it's the latest in the constitutional amendment for pay raises, the I can be a senator and a lobbyist at the same time.
Right.
The Senate office building where 24 of our senators are not only going to get a brand new shiny office, but we're going to keep an old office in the Capitol.
Right.
So we're going to have two offices
Right.
for a part-time job.
Yep.
And so on and so on. And there's and not city of Minneapolis. I mean, just leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, John Edwards was right. There are two Americas. There's us, and then there's the DFL elite.
It is shocking to me, two things. Shocking to me, one, the blind spot that the so-called party of the middle class has on this issue that they've essentially been. I mean, if you're a talented Republican storyteller, you can look at this and say, my gosh, it is a great time to be a DFL politician and just tick off the list and really spend 2 years talking about it. And then two, the fact that the Republicans haven't put this together yet, other than me, but the party should be dropping this into.
It's clearly, I mean, it seems clear to me. He's not running for re-election. He's already said he's not running for re-election. He is going to do whatever he wants with very little accountability.
Right.
These next 4 years, anything that he can do without legislative oversight, he's going to do.
Or 1 year.
Until
6
Tina
months.
Smith takes over. Yeah, you're right. There was apparently a law passed in the last legislative session by the DFL legislature that allows him to give out these raises without any legislative oversight. Lawmakers were notified 30 days after the raises took place.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe that was part of this too, where why would the legislature cede that authority?
It was the DFL legislature.
But regardless, I mean, you can blame the U.S. Congress for doing the same thing over basically several generations. Is why would you ever give up power over? Because it's not as though you're never going to be back in a situation.
Do you think that the DFL in this state is so confident and comfortable with their status that they don't see a Republican winning a statewide election on the horizon? Because it's how long has it been? 12, 14 years since the Republicans won a statewide election?
Well, 2002. Tim Pawlenty.
He was reelected in 06.
Reelected in 06.
When did Norm win? I was 02 as well.
But you actually have to go back to 1994 since a Republican won a majority in a statewide election.
That's a good point.
So that's 21 years.
Right. So do they?
Could be.
And now that the Independence Party has lost its major party status, so it's not. I mean, it never was a real threat, but now they're going to have to fight to just get on the ballot.
So we're a one-party state.
Well, they raised $2 billion in taxes and nobody pushed back.
Right.
You know, why wouldn't they? Do what you want.
1 year after MNsure, a year and 4 months after MNsure has been implemented, they're already calling for it to be completely overhauled, disbanded, and turned into a separate state agency.
Well,
and nobody's going, does that mean that it failed? Does that mean that you did it wrong?
Right, Does that mean you're admitting that everything talk radio, crazy-eyed Michelle Bachmann and everybody else said
the
at the
chief
time was right?
sponsor of the bill that created MNsure is now the chief sponsor behind the bill to disband it, overhaul it, and turn it into a separate state agency.
Right. Well, they tried.
Does that mean you're bad at your job? Nobody's asking that.
No.
You are.
I'm sure we could work in a vaccine thing here if we want to. We're talking about what's important, right?
It's incredibly frustrating, whether it's the taxes or this pay raise thing that shows that, yes, the DFL is out of touch, but the voters are also out of touch. They either don't know this stuff is happening, and we only reach 37 people every morning.
It's gone up.
Or they don't care.
All right.
Or they don't care. You know, it's this. What time is it? Okay, I can say this. I've got an aunt who listens. This is the only place she gets her political news. She voted for Mark Dayton. She's family, you know. If I can't convince her, he seems nice. There was a poll done.
He seems nice.
There's the Minnesota way, right? Well, he seems like a nice guy.
I talked with a fundraiser who said that she had seen some polling and people thought Mark Dayton was a businessman. A businessman. He's the exact opposite of that. Didn't do anything.
He's never been in a business.
He's a man with a last name.
Like physically set foot in a business.
Right.
Yeah.
Come down to Dayton, see how it works.
Is the governor Scooby-Doo?
Sometimes. It's nuts. People need to wake up or this stuff is going to happen over and over and over again.
The governor watches Scooby-Doo and wonders how it's going to end every time.
Oh. Ruh-roh.
Oh, he's just a guy in a mask again.
It's Adam Dunick.
All right, when we come back, Mike, you going to hang out the rest of the show?
Sure.
All right, don't talk. Ben Johnson with the City Pages.
Up and Adam.
You guys talk about things and stuff.
On Twin